Hi, Megan.
Hello, you all right?
Hi. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, thank you.
Hi. So, do you want to put your camera on or are you?
I can do. I've got other people in the room just kind of tidying up and doing bits
Oh,
and
fine.
bobs.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Um, it's just I usually come on earlier just to chat to people, etc. So, how are you getting on with Mighty Writer?
Yeah, we're getting on fine. I'm in year three, so it's a bit
Okay.
different for us. Obviously, we're a bit further up the school, but we have got children working below age expected
Right.
standards, which we do use it for
Yeah.
out in the bay, and it works really well.
Yeah.
Um, I've had some training with Alice, who I think normally comes to this, or is it Kelly that normally
Yeah. So
comes?
you're from Horns Mill, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alice has gone on maternity, so I'm kind
Yeah.
of covering little bits for her, doing the phonics and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've had like loads of training from her, and it's been really good. I know people in Key Stage 1 find it really beneficial as well,
Yeah.
especially for those children who really struggle to put together a sentence. It helps with that sentence structure.
Yes. And what made you join this webinar particularly? Just to see how it can engage children just generally because you're
Yeah,
interested.
yeah, just a bit more knowledge, really.
Yeah, okay,
Um,
fine.
yeah, nothing in particular. I was struggling at the beginning to think about how we could use it with year three, because obviously the
Right.
mastery skills are a little bit more advanced than it would be for
Yeah.
Key Stage 1.
Yeah.
But we seem to be doing okay with that now.
Yeah.
I attended one with Alice, which I think you spoke to her about that, and how we can slightly adapt it. So I've been doing
Yes.
little adaptations, and
Okay.
it's been working really well.
Oh,
So
good.
sometimes we have like a challenge word, that they have to get in, like
Yeah.
carefully if we were looking at adverbs. So
Yeah.
we'd have like little challenge words on the board, that Mighty Writer obviously have on the side that they have
Yeah.
to get in, just to make sure that they're hitting them goals, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, because I mean, really, there's no limit to what you can do. I mean, I was speaking to somebody the other day and they're using it up to year six, and they were
Yeah,
like, there's not really any aspect of grammar. You can't, sort of use this to model and, and for children that are also on catch up, sort of key stage, sort of working at key stage one,
yeah,
you can kind of do both at the same time. So your expectation is still really high, but they're able to grasp that foundation as well as sort of thinking, actually, I could use a fronted adverbial here, or,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, even with like speech marks, it's really clear for them to see it when you've got that
yes,
pictorial aspect of it,
yeah,
where the speech actually goes. So
yeah,
it's been really nice for things like that
yeah.
we've used it for as well.
Fine, fantastic. So you're in year three full time, are you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Okay, okay, fine. Oh, thanks, Megan. That's really good. And Jenny, hi.
Hi, you okay?
Hi. Yeah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So you've already got Mighty Writer, presumably.
I do, yes, but
And which
I'm in year one at the moment.
Okay. And how are you finding it?
I really like it. We've started to move to it this year, since September,
Yeah.
and I'm building up on using it for oracy, within the lesson.
Yeah.
We've moved from single sentences to a bit more structure,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to work that within my English lessons, and it's
Yeah.
working well so far.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. I mean, because Megan and I were just talking as well, and you're in Key Stage 2, aren't you, Megan? And I was the school that Megan's with. I was talking to them the other week about oracy, particularly, and how we think it's going to be quite. I don't know what you think, Jenny, in terms of quite a big thing that Ofsted will be focusing on because oracy is such a big issue. Do you agree?
I completely agree because our school, we've got a lot of EAL children
Yeah.
and children with needs who can't really say a sentence in year one.
No.
It's difficult for them.
No.
And it's teaching them to kind of come up with a sentence in their head
Yeah.
before they answer out loud. And I think it's making a massive impact on their English work as well. It's making a lot more sense and they're able to do it a lot more independently because of that and the structure of the Mighty Writer. So
Yeah.
I agree. And Ofsted are going to, I think, really pick up on it in the next couple
Yeah.
of years.
And the thing is, it's like anything though, they have to be able to say it before they can write it. And, you know, so I feel sort of quite passionate about that. And so I'm working on a scheme of work at the moment. So it's going to start with reception. So it will help teachers implement Mighty Writer, but it's going to be a lot less prescriptive. So, you know, you can choose the books you're using, you can choose the hooks you're using. It's all about what are we actually wanting as outcomes? Because, you know, if you've got every child by the end of reception that knows what they want to say and can say it, you know, and you've got all their phonics going alongside, you're halfway there, aren't you, to writing? So, you know, that's going to be a really key thing, I think, that Ofsted focuses on. So we've got a couple of minutes. I don't know if either of you've got any questions about, you know, how you're using it, and you want just to ask me now in case anyone else joins on, and then, you know, I'll start the meeting at 1:45.
I'm just wondering about the arrows. So the
Oh, yeah.
arrows kind of, I've started using them as in to join sentences together. That's right,
Yeah.
isn't it? You don't use it within the sentence.
No, you don't use it within
No.
the sentence. You can use it to join the sentences together, like you've got here.
Yeah.
But also, especially for children in year one who are not really at the stage of a structured sentence, i.e., you're wanting them to be able to think of an idea and accurately recall it, let's say,
Yeah.
you might literally just literally do it to connect two pictures, so
Yeah.
that they're really getting the idea that that is the order I say it in, that it's the same every time, if you see what I
Okay.
mean. So they
Yeah.
really get in the habit of being able to hold that idea in their head, say it out loud, so that they're seeing it visually. So more and more they can start to do that in their head without that visual cue.
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
So,
Yeah.
you know, you're really teaching them about that, you know, this is what we've said. If I put that will teach you, we always say it that way around. And within that, you're going to be able to give them opportunity to edit. So, you know, I would always be saying to children, even if they're non-verbal in year one, children who are EAL, who haven't got the language but have the understanding, you know, I would be saying to them, could we swap that round? What would that say now? So we're able to edit and review it and change our minds, but once we're happy with it, you know, that is the order we say it in. Can we add an adjective? So, you know, and it's keeping it small enough for them to really get that skill. So you're not having lots of pictures. And when you come to the sentences, I wouldn't do more than say 2 pictures, because 2 pictures is enough to add your conjunction if you need one, to, you know, use several adjectives if you're connecting them with and or separating them with a comma. You can start using a range of sentence starters, different kinds of punctuation. You can more than cover everything you need to in Key Stage 1, can't you?
Yeah,
But it just keeps it more simple and actually focused on the foundation of what do we need these children to do before they, you know, rather than running before they can walk.
Yeah, I think
You know.
there's a lot of schemes that are making children run before they can walk, and I've definitely, because I've been teaching in year one for about 3 or 4 years now.
Okay.
And this has been the first year that we really stripped it back.
Right.
And it's just worked so much better.
Yeah.
It's just so much better. And they can focus on their handwriting, they can focus on reading the sentence back and understanding what they have written, because they've gone over it so many times with the Mighty Writer. So yeah, I really, really like it.
Yeah. And it's having that ownership as well, isn't it? You know, they're invested in it. They're doing it because they know what they want to say. It's their so even though you are kind of in charge, as in, you know, your objectives, you know where you need these children to be, they have a lot of say. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we need them to be independent, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know, I've got other people that have signed up to come to this meeting, so whether they come or not, I mean, I don't know. But what I'll do is I'll make a start. And you know, you can put your cameras on if you feel happy to, but if not, it's not the end of the world. And then I'll sort of talk to you about sort of maximising classroom engagement, particularly along the lines of obviously using Mighty Writer, and then we can have a chat at the end.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks.
So I've just made some notes, so you know, I'm looking down at them because I just don't want to forget anything. So you know, the whole thing is really, in terms of getting children to be writers, we need to get children on board as early as possible and engaging, particularly with areas of learning that we know children traditionally struggle with. you know, as they move through primary school. And writing is particularly one of those things. You know, early engagement significantly predicts academic and social success. So, you know, if we've got children who from reception are wanting to talk, they're wanting to put pen to paper, they're proud of their ideas, you know, those children are much more likely to continue that and make much better progress than children who are very reluctant, you know, don't see themselves as writers. And you can see all the signs very early on, can't you? So for a child to engage with their surroundings and activities and truly connect, you know, with what you are trying to sort of teach them in the classroom, you know, it's what do they need? So they need to be empowered. They need to be motivated. They need to be interested. You know, they need to be allowed to make choices. And I think that is crucial. So giving them and allowing them to display that independence, because our ultimate aim is for them to be lifelong independent learners. So, you know, rather than saying to children, this is what you need to write, this is what words you need to use, it's kind of teaching them all the options so that they naturally start to want to do those things for themselves. You know, they're naturally reviewing their ideas, they're naturally taking on board what's been taught, what's been shown them, and they're thinking, that's where I want to use that word, this is what, you know, and all those kinds of things. So, you know, we want them to be allowed to participate. They need to explore, they need to be allowed to be creative and to use their imagination. And so, you know, that's really obvious with Mighty Writer in terms of allowing children to just play with ideas, pictures, connect them, talk about them, make up as many stories as they want to. So they are, you know, really developing that love of language, that love of storytelling, the idea that their imagination knows no bounds. And I think alongside that, you know, we need to be asking the right kind of questions. So, you know, open-ended questions, encouraging their thinking, their questioning and their problem-solving skills. So where I gave that example just now, well, could we swap those pictures round? What would that say? Would that sound better? So it's always opening up the children to thinking of, actually, yes, there is another way I could say that, but which one do I think I prefer? There needs to be constant positive reinforcement. So, you know, if a child feels bad about themselves or their ability, immediately, you know, a part of them is inhibited, their progress is slowed. So, you know, even if I've got a child who is saying nothing and they are literally just playing with Mighty Writer and I've got it on the floor, they've got lots of pictures out. If they just put two pictures relatively close together, you know, I might say to them, oh, wow, what a fantastic sentence you've thought of. And I think of a way to connect those pictures. So everything they do is successful. You know, I'm not putting them into a box. I'm not saying, oh, actually, this child really needs work on this, they can't do this. It's a case of this is their starting point, and this is the kind of motivation they need, the empowerment they need to start being independent and to start making that progress. So, you know, when you sort of think about your class, you know, how do we know children are engaged? You know, on a daily basis, when you think that was a fantastic lesson or that activity went really well, it's down to the fact that children are engaged. And how do we know they're engaged? You know, some examples might be focused attention, active participation, asking the questions, making suggestions, you know, making comments about what they're doing and starting to apply that knowledge, starting to make those connections. So, you know, if I was to give children the Mighty Writer mat and they're playing and I suddenly notice the child saying, actually, no, I'm going to swap those pictures round, or I could add an adjective to that, immediately, you know, that child is starting to be independent. They're applying their knowledge, they're thinking of ways to improve it, and it's coming from them. So what are the results of having an engaged child? Their attention, their initiation, their persistence, their interest, their cooperation, you know, all those things are associated with children's social communication and cognitive development. So, you know, all those things are enhanced if they're showing that engagement. So their progress will be better because that is how children learn best. you know, when they feel, you know, ownership, when they feel successful, when everything they're starting to apply is sort of coming together. And I think, you know, a lot of children, even from when they start school, don't see themselves as writers, or they start to very early on, you know, make comparisons between themselves and other children, and they might think, well, I can't do that, or I don't want to do that. And you know, it's interesting if you have the Mighty Writer mat out from reception and it's just on the floor and you're putting pieces of paper out, felt tips, etc., and you're not asking them to record, but are children choosing to mark make? You know, how do they see themselves as writers? Do they like mark making? Do they see purpose in it? Do they want to show their skills and what they can do? And you know, very early on you can see the kind of way a child perceives themselves as a writer. You know, you want to see a positive attitude to learning, and you want to see them increasingly self-motivated. And I think the question is always, you know, whatever I'm teaching, you know, particularly obviously focusing on writing and talking and thinking of ideas, when that child goes away and they are working independently, you know, how independent are they? Are they actually able, you know, after we've done this fantastic input, etc., are they actually able to think of what they want to say? You know, are they able to organize their ideas? Are they enthusiastic about that? You know, are they able to talk about that? Are they able to have a go at writing that down? You know, because that is, you know, the crux of being an independent writer. So how do we sort of do all that in the classroom? Whatever the challenges we may face in the classroom, you know, with certain behaviours, you know, that children may exhibit, we know for sure that all children learn better when they feel good about themselves and are doing what is interesting to them. So obviously, as you know, and that you're doing every day, you know, activities need to be relevant and they need to be cleverly chosen and adapted to allow for children to have ownership whilst working towards key objectives and outcomes. And I think that's the thing with Mighty Writer, in terms of you're in charge of what children have access to on this, you know, so it's very sort of structured the way you can build this up, so it's not too much too soon, and it's really allowing children to explore, you know, at the stage they're at, and just starting to gradually move them forwards. And I think little and often works best. So in terms of using Mighty Writer in the classroom and kind of engaging children, yes, you might use it for your sort of main literacy input, let's say. So you might be, I don't know, you could be working in year 2 or even year 3, and maybe you are planning the beginning of a story together, so you might spend the whole of, you know, the 15-20 minutes, you know, making up 2 or 3 sentences with your class, and you're really focusing on sentence starters, and you know, that's your kind of main body of work. But also, I think with a lot of children, to kind of get them on board, to kind of get them interested, and to help them feel kind of quite relaxed about things, you can drip feed key objectives and ideas throughout the day in a way that is just interesting to children, but is just constant reminders for them. So, you know, I think things like, at the end of the day, you know, building a really quick sentence. So, you know, a child choosing, you know, a sentence mat, another child choosing a sentence starter, another child choosing a couple of pictures, another child choosing the punctuation, and then going back, let's say that sentence out loud. What does it say? How could we improve it? Can we change the sentence starter? Could we add a conjunction? You know, all the questions appropriate to sort of their ability, etc. But you know, things like, right, can somebody choose a picture? Right, what adjectives can we think of? You know, putting the stars alongside that picture, and that might just be when they're lining up for assembly. So you might just do drip feeding all those key things you know you want children to have really embedded, you know, have a really good understanding of. You're not just limiting it to your literacy hour, you know, or the time you're teaching literacy. It's kind of just little and often throughout the day, so that your aim is that all those things just become second nature to children. You know, they can picture in their mind building up that sentence. They're constantly saying to themselves, no, I want to change that sentence starter. I can think of a better one. I'm going to add this conjunction, because they've just seen it so many times. And, you know, also this is really powerful to use as a storytelling tool at the end of the day. And you can use that to reinforce and consolidate what you have specifically been teaching. You know, so if I've noticed that children are not necessarily using a range of sentence starters, for example, you know, I might at the end of the day model making a sentence, and the children are just going to literally watch me. They don't have to have any input in it, but they're seeing me change my mind, say that sentence again, improve my idea, change the sentence starter. So, you know, it doesn't have to be a lot of time on it, but it's just, I'm aware that if I show children enough times and I model that kind of behavior, you know, the behavior of an author, reflecting on ideas, developing, you know, improving my vocabulary, you know, all of those things, it's behavior that starts to pay off, and the children start to apply it for themselves. And, you know, the idea is you start doing that really early on, i.e. in reception. You know, I'm using verbs, I'm using adjectives in my own modelling. So you want also for children to realise, and I think a lot of children are afraid to, first of all, think about what they want to say, and secondly, write it down, because they're afraid of making mistakes. And I think it's really crucial that children don't even consider that mistakes is a possibility, or that mistakes are even a thing, because, you know, at the end of the day, an author will always be reflecting on their ideas, changing their mind. It's not a case of they made a mistake, it's just they're thinking of a better way to do it, or a way to improve it. So I think if, when you are using Mighty Writer, and they see you make a sentence or you make up a short story, and you're looking back and you're thinking, no, I'm not very happy with that, I'm going to swap that picture, that sounds much better. So you're modeling that kind of reviewing it, editing it in a very positive way. I think it really helps to change the mindset of children, so they're not hung up on, oh, I didn't think of that, or I can't change it, or I didn't get it right the first time. It's you know, I haven't made a mistake. And, you know, and I'm actively saying to the children, you know, if I'm modeling something, actually, could anyone help me? What could I say then? Oh, that sounds a bit better. So, you know, they just get used to having that conversation. And, you know, that comes down to us being confident in ourselves as practitioners, and really taking the long-term view, and knowing that children have to really embed certain attitudes and behaviours if they are going to be independent and successful later on. And, you know, those behaviours that we're trying to, you know, really focus on and develop in children, that is worth taking the time with. And, you know, when you look at everything on the Mighty Writer mat, I mean, if you've got children by the end of year 2 able to use all of these things, you know, adjectives, verbs, adverbs, a range of punctuation, speech marks, etc., you know, if they're using that independently and accurately by the end of year 2, then you've done an amazing job, and they are independent writers. And, you know, you've got, if you're starting to use this in reception or possibly even nursery, you know, you've got a tremendous amount of time to get children to that point. And, you know, you've got time to allow them to explore and to think of creative ways during the day to engage them, whether it's them in a small group playing with it, whether it's in reception, putting them in pairs and allowing them, you know, the time to move things around, to develop that vocabulary, to be the storyteller, and you know, all those things, you know, that they have to be able to do to be confident writers. So, you know, using Mighty Writer to make your key objectives second nature, and I think, you know, that's the thing. So modeling sentences from scratch every single time, so children are constantly seeing sentences built from scratch, you know, realizing that it doesn't matter if we get it right the first time, let's change it around, what does it make sense? And just always asking yourself the question, you know, are they able to do this independently? You know, whatever it is I'm expecting of them, can they do it independently? And if they can't, then it's just a case of thinking, well, what skills do they need to acquire in order to be able to do this independently? Because then you know how you need to build that foundation and what things they've got missing. And, you know, when you're using Mighty Writer in Key Stage 2, and you've got little pockets of things, you know, actually, if they were able to do this, you know, their writing would really improve. If they only could use, you know, another conjunction apart from and, it would make a big difference, or a range of sentence starters. You know, you can very specifically hone in on those key things that will dramatically make an improvement to the standard of their writing and their, you know, independence. So, you know, but really starting from reception, I think it's really a case of getting children talking and being very confident in suggesting ideas, of knowing they have an imagination, and of being very clever at reviewing those ideas, changing their mind, and basically creating very confident talkers who, alongside their phonics and everything, can then start to put pen to paper. And you know, I think if children are really, if Mighty Writer is really used in reception to focus on oracy, and you know, like Jenny was saying, so that by the time they get into year one, they really have that skill really much embedded. I mean, that is going to make a significant difference to their ability to write. So that's the kind of, you know, overview. I mean, how do you feel in terms of engaging children in your classroom? I mean, does that make sense in terms of little and often, or, you know, modelling something, even if it was just for 2 or 3 minutes, you know, at a lunchtime, etc.?
Yeah, that would work in year one very well.
Yeah.
I think because you've got a very limited timetable as well,
Yeah.
and only that short English lesson, limiting it to that. And that's what I do at the moment. So that idea of doing it throughout the day, little and often, is really, really nice. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And definitely one I'm going to take forward and kind of present to reception as well. And as well, having the board on the floor is not something that I would have thought of, or the reception teacher would have thought of, and allowing the children to play with it, I think, is a really nice idea as well.
Yeah, I would definitely do that. And especially in reception, when it comes to mark making, I would get, you know, big bits of paper or felt tips, so that children, so even if you don't say to the children, I want you to write this down, you know, there's no pressure at all. We're wanting children to instigate that for themselves. So we want to get to the point where when we're observing them, they're making up and they're having a go, even if it's drawing a picture or it's a scribble. The fact is they're communicating or in print what their idea was, if you see what I mean. So you know, before we get to the stage where I want you to start writing that word, or can you write that word down, you know, it's a case of they're naturally starting to show the signs of being a writer, just because of the way you have introduced it and allowed them that time to explore. And you know, I would, you know, if you look at your kind of objectives for year one, and you're thinking, let's look at the end of year one, what do we want to see in these children, you know, with these writers? I want them to be using and, for example, as a conjunction. You know, I want them to be using a range of adjectives. So therefore, what I model, or what I choose to make a point of reviewing with the children, is all those things, you know. And even if they're lined up for assembly, or, you know, and we're making a very quick sentence, I'm going to make a point of, oh, we could add and in, let's extend the sentence, you know, should we add and, who else did that, who else went to the park, you know. So it's just little things like that, but it might just take 1 or 2 minutes, but over time it's just, oh, I naturally, you know, the children naturally do that.
I think they would quite enjoy in my class doing that themselves, even making a story up about what they did with their friends at the weekend and using it to do that. I think that's a really good way of getting them to be able to say it. I think mine are at the point where they probably should have come up from reception, being able to have the oracy skills to be able to come up with a sentence, but I'm having to strip it all the way back, and start there. But it's getting them faster at that, and it's getting them better at that. And so when they go to year 2, that's not even a question that they can do that, and they can put pen to paper and write it.
Yeah, and also you don't have to worry about how much they're saying or how much they're retelling. What you're thinking about is, do they know what they want to say, and can they remember it? So, because once they can, as they get more used to it, that will eventually extend itself anyway. You know, their sentence recall will be longer, their vocabulary is going to develop. So if you're talking about like what they did at the weekend, let's say, or you know, after half term, you know, whatever they've done, you might just say, it might just be a case of, you know, I went to visit a castle. So
Right.
it just might be literally 2 pictures, and you might just do that at registration time. So you're not even doing a whole formal sentence, but
Yeah.
but even when you're doing that, so I went to a castle, or the castle was visited by me. Do you see what I mean? Does it make
Yeah, I
more
see what
sense?
you mean.
So
Yeah.
even if it's only 2 pictures, it's kind of introducing children to the idea that we can say those words in a different order. And if they're getting very good at moving words around in their head, then later on that's really going to lead nicely into things like fronted adverbials, isn't it?
It is,
Because
yeah.
they will just start. So, you know, it's small beginnings, but the fact is you've taught them that skill.
Yeah, that's great. I think I'm definitely going to move forward with that one as well. Just in the little small moments throughout the
Yes.
day, I think that'd work
Yeah.
so well in my class.
Yeah. And even if you've got them in, even if you don't have all the children in the class, so say at lunchtime when they're all washing their hands and you've got different children in and out, it might be a case of, right, you choose a sentence, you know, choose a sentence, Matt. Can you choose a sentence starter? And you can put on display, you know, ones like carefully, ones like eventually, words that they're not necessarily choosing at all in their writing. Maybe they don't even know what the word means, but once they've chosen it, you know, immediately they thought of that sentence, didn't they? So eventually, you know, the girl arrived at the castle, full stop.
Yeah.
How can we improve that? Oh, somebody might say, let's add an adjective. You know, what was the castle like? Because you've done a bit of work on adjectives. Or so, you know, they're getting very good at making those sentences the best they can be. And as their vocabulary improves, those sentences will become more sophisticated.
Brilliant. That's really good. Thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank
That's
you
the
so
end.
much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks ever so much.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, Megan, are you still there? Okay, thank you.